true indeed, misogyny, patriarchy is at an all-time high. I think all the hosts on the platform can agree with it. But I also say imperialism is at an all-time high as well. And I think that what happens with capitalism and imperialism, colonialism as a whole, um, what they capitalism will morph into whatever you desire. So part of the destruction of African people here in the United States and abroad is that they'll trot out certain types of people. They'll trot out Obama. Boona mentioned Obama when he was elected. I was at the Ebenezer Baptist Church here in Atlanta, King's Church. We were uh, there on behalf of Troy Davis. At the time, we were protesting Troy Davis. So I went through with Martina Correa, who was Troy's sister and whatnot, uh, a dear friend of mine, and some other folks from different formations. We were there strictly to support and raise up the name Troy Davis. This was before his execution. So we happened to be inside the church, and you had some of the richest, wealthiest Negroes, most popular Negroes in the world were there because it was Atlanta, and it was at King's Church. Uh, the problem I have with this whole Kamala conundrum is that people aren't looking at policy. I think that what happens is we get confused, and gender becomes the number one issue. So it becomes the argument and the question uh, is swayed and centered around, oh, you're not for black girl magic, or you know what I'm saying, you're not, this is a black woman, so on and so forth, blah blah blah. I look at Kamala's history, just like I look at Trump's history, just like I look at uh, any other candidate that's running, whether it's Jill Stein, whether it's Cornell, um, you, a good sister, Cynthia McKinney, whatever the case is. So my question is, how do we tackle this? Because we can't allow uh, folks to get away with criminal acts, and she's committed many criminal acts
Yeah,
as
but
a just
Kalonji,
hear me out, hear me out, as a prosecutor and as an attorney general. Because if we look at it in the words of Imam Jamil Alameen, formerly H. Rap Brown, to be black is necessary, but it ain't sufficient. We would look at Mobutu and say, okay, well, he was black and he was in Africa, so he should be allowed to move the way he moved. So I'm really interested. I'm curious in that because I think that it's a thin line between gender and genocide.
yeah, no, what I'm going to say, see, when you just said it shouldn't be the number one agenda, it is for me and my daughter because the Supreme Court literally have taken our reproductive rights away. Like, what if the Supreme Court had said, not only are we going to take away women's right to choose what they want for their body, we're also now going to sterilize men that we think shouldn't procreate. We're now going to go into prisons and be like, you're going to be sterilized. You will never have a baby, even if you come out of prison. I'm sorry, like this is what I'm saying. The space of my generation, most there's a reason why so many of us walked away from hip hop because we're threatened first because of our gender. We're not threatened because we believe in the words of Malcolm X grassroots movement. I won't be threatened if I'm fighting for Puerto Rican independence, but the white lefty kind of men that are part of that, they're going to come at me because I'm a woman. Period. And so I think I I've always been taught you don't pick one or the other. But also, why are we as the women always having to give up part of our intersectionality? What about the men?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I piggyback? Can I piggyback? I got to jump in. I got to get in
sure,
this. I got
sure,
to
sure,
say something. Okay.
sure.
Thank you for the intersectionality. Kimberly Crenshaw gave us that word, and we must use it because these are the moments where we see it in real time. Intersectionality. Now, there's a level, and I think I see and I understand what you're trying to get at, Kalanji. Right? How can we criticize her without it being personal? There's a difference between politics and personal. Right? We can definitely be critical with policy and politics, but I think, and I dare say, don't let me be misunderstood in trying to speak for you, my sister. But I think what we're getting at is that it becomes personal when a woman gets in that space. It doesn't become just political. And that is the space where intersectionality starts to rear its ugly head. Because we can't deny that she is definitely a problem. But then there becomes this other level of misogyny becomes a two-handed sword. Because at one hand, Kamala's gender is being used to lullaby us because it's kind of bringing a starter point for the Black community. She might be the first Black woman. And so her gender and her race becomes her leading campaign strategy. I just watched something of her like dancing with a drill team squad. Yeah. Right? That's some Black girl shit. They're throwing her Blackness and her femininity to package her. Like, this is who y'all want. And so I think that there is a double-edged sword on that. Because at one hand, yes, it becomes her asset. But at the other hand, it becomes another avenue for misogyny and intersectionality of sexism and oppression to still rear its ugly head. So I just want to say this. Let's criticize her as a politician. Let's not necessarily create a conversation that distracts from who she is as a politician. We don't have to get into the gender shit. You see what I'm saying?
She's not gonna win. Yeah. The idea that she's gonna win to me is like, that's what's making me very angry, right? Like, first, again, you now have young Black, Afro-Black, Southeast Asian young girls who literally are living in the time where our reproductive rights have been taken away. I think when we talk about imperialism in our communities, like, we know it. But if I go ask my crew and my people, imperialism, they're like, who's that? Is that a new person on the block? Like, that's the thing. We have stupid voters. Sorry, like, there's no voter education happening anymore. So people are just going, let's go. You're Black, you're Asian, you're woman, not looking at her track record as, Attorney General of California, what she did to potentially criminalize parents whose kids were skipping school, that she's standing with Gaza. And that, to me, honestly, is like, that's what's been infuriating to me. The 9 months of Genocide Joe, genocide, to now see visible Palestinian people going, we got to give her a chance. I'm like, y'all are crazy. Now y'all are crazy. How are you going to be for 9 months saying it's a genocide and the next day marketing her run? Because what it is, a younger generation below us, Kalanji, like the more millennials, they're very savvy at like, this is really bad. But in case, let's give the win to the movement. What movement that won right now? She's not going to stop with Gaza. She's not going to do anything, about unions, about livable wages. She may cancel student loan debt, all of it, $1 trillion of it, all that being said. So with you, I agree on this, right? But I think what happens is we're just assuming that people know terms. We're assuming that they have even read her.
Oh, yeah. No. So
what you're saying, I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So to your point, this woman right here, is everyone familiar with this woman that's on the screen? Okay. Her name, this sister right here, her name is Cherie Peoples. Cherie Peoples, when Kamala was Attorney General, District Attorney, back in 2011, I believe, 2013. This woman was arrested. She was perp walked because of the fact that the law that Kamala Harris authored, the Truancy Act, that particular act, it made it so that parents of folks who missed school, they missed too many days, they would be arrested. This particular woman right here, when you see her, she was arrested with all types of cameras, so on and so forth. And you would think that, as she said, you would think that she killed someone. The problem was her 11-year-old daughter had missed 20 days out of school. Okay. So she was arrested. But why did she miss the 20 days out of school? She missed those 20 days out of school because she had severe sickle cell anemia. You understand what I'm saying? So the school was arguing with her whether or not she should miss school because of this particular chronic illness. My point is this right here. Kamala has a track record as a war criminal under the Biden administration, right? We're clear about that. I'm not saying that gender doesn't matter. Indeed, it does. I'm not saying that reproductive rights aren't necessary and mandatory and are the rights of women. I'm all for that. I'm a father. I have grown children. I'm a grandfather. I have granddaughters. So I want them to be able to choose and make the decisions that they want to make and not have some cracker that's up in office try to tell them how to deal with their particular bodies. That's not my issue. You understand what I'm saying? That is a choice that they have the right to make, not the government. I unite with that. But when I'm talking about Kamala Harris, just like Obama, just like Condoleezza Rice, and so many others, I can't just say, okay, boom, because black women are under attack, then I can't point out the
Yeah, but
fact
Solange,
that you're a criminal.
you're weaving a personal narrative, and we all have that. Like, I don't get.
No, this isn't personal.
No, come on,
It's,
bro.
it's,
We known each other for like 30 years. Listen to me
I
now.
know.
Right? So this is what I'm saying. We all have our personal narratives, but gender is not divorced of that. That's all.
I don't have a problem with that.
Like,
I don't have a problem with that. I unite with that.
Right. And I'm saying this, in the long run, she's not going to win because men in this country are not going to vote for a woman. And that's why I'm like, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, right now, the gender thing is being pushed, of course, because she's a woman. We've never had a woman president. And also, I, as a Black Puerto Rican, self-identified Black Puerto Rican woman, I also, I have to give grace, particularly to African American women, right? Like, especially for younger women. I did it when we were running against Obama. Look, when he won, I knew why everybody stopped to watch. I know my dad wasn't like crying. He never really voted. He was like, oh, I didn't think this would ever happen while I was still alive. Let's get back to work. I got to go to work tomorrow, kind of thing. That's what I'm saying. I honestly don't think she wins because she's a woman, because of the patriarchal conditions. And I also think like a lot of hella white men and white women, even people in my family rolling for Trump hard, that they have not right now or aware about where Trump and his cronies are about to go, like in the next couple days or in the 3 days. So for me, being in a third party, although this year I'm supporting Melina Abdullah and Dr. West, I don't think she has the ability to win because we live in a patriarchal society that never wants to see any type of woman being, quote, the leader of the free world.
Right. And again, for the record, the last time I voted for McKinney Clemente. You understand what I'm saying? Because Cynthia McKinney was someone that I organized with in these streets, for over 20 years. So I know where she stands, and I know where you stand, because as you mentioned, we've known each other over 30 years. Now, so I ask you as an organizer, and I'm going to pass the mic, but this is, for the folks that's listening, this is healthy because these are the discussions that are going on in the barbershops. There's going to be a whole lot of folks claiming patriarchy, so on and so forth. There's going to be a lot of folks who are going to be patriarchal. There's going to be misogynists or whatever, so on and so forth. But at the same time, I also understand that we're in a world, again, when we're talking about capitalism and colonialism, Barack Obama didn't become the first Black president because, he was just an articulate, handsome Black man. He became the first Black president because of the fact that his connection to the Black community was a disconnect. He didn't identify as an African in America, just much like Kamala Harris identifies as Black in certain circles, but also she believes in her Asian heritage, and we go ahead and we respect that because you are who you are, right? However, I'm also saying that we have to be careful because of the fact that they're going to give you what you want because they know that you're sick and tired of old crusty ass crackers. You understand what I'm saying? But we already saw this play from the jump. So real
Okay, I
quick,
got yeah, yeah.
quick question,
Quick question,
then we'll
but,
wrap.
we got
Yeah,
we got to connect something real quick because
no
you
doubt,
played
no
a
doubt.
clip. You played a clip
Yes,
from that brother, and that
yes,
brother basically said that Barack Obama became a symbol.
that's
He
right.
did so much damage when he was in office.
That's right.
Kamala Harris, if she were to be elected as president, she would become just as that, a symbol. And it's
Totally.
dangerous when you get Black women being lullabied and disillusioned by people who look like they're supposed to be for us, but maybe in real life are not. And that woman that you just showed is an example. There's another young man that Kamala Harris sent to prison. He ended up suing the local police department there and all of that and got like $1 million settlement because of her. She is a problem, but because she's a Black woman, she's going to be packaged to us as another symbol of the beast. And that brother just said it in that clip that you played.
Glenn
Kamala
Ford.
Harris is no different.
Glenn Ford.
Yeah,
But look at Biden's whole cabinet. Biden played that shit like a violin. The majority of Biden's cabinet was Black women. In fact, he started his campaign last year. I mean, when he last ran, he said, "If you don't vote for me, you ain't what." So he straight up told you out the gate. So the
so
thing
the
is,
Biden
And
government
the real thing is that
wasn't
Black
most
women have
Black
to understand
women.
what their power
huh?
really is. We don't
You
have
said
to
what?
be, yeah.
That the cabinet was not mostly Black women. Biden's cabinet.
I mean, if you look at, I mean, he had like what 9 or so Black women, Black judges, Black. He was
He
appointing
definitely
Black
used
folks
Black women as an
like a pimp,
appeal to the
like a
Black
tool.
community.
Yeah, but look, I think this is where we're at. We're in a state right now within our communities, within these United States, that patriarchy does not need, that white supremacy doesn't need a white person. Is carried out by folks, right? Like the Black Miss Leadership class, but obviously Biden, and if Harris wins, what that's going to look like. To me, I feel the same. Just because you're a woman doesn't mean you're not patriarchal. And that's the nuance I talk about, right? Like, we're now in these systems, especially because we're becoming the majority. But again, it is Black spaces, Black academia, Black organizers that have always accepted and loved me and like, go do oh, you're a Black Puerto Rican, dope. Where Latinos hate me, I don't care. I'm like, whatever, hate yourself, you hate me, I'm trying to get Puerto Rico free after I leave this mess of the United States, so I think that's the tricky part. And I also understand, like, if you look at millennials, 2008, they were still young and they see a Black man becoming the president. They believed everything. You know why? Because they didn't know what it meant to vote. They didn't read the platform. They didn't know the policy. It was the hearts and minds of the people that Biden, but it was that generation that then the George Zimmerman, Troy Davis, right? Jenna Six, Troy Davis, shooting Trayvon, he gets out. Almost a year to Zimmerman gets acquitted, and Zimmerman was a Peruvian person. Nobody's ever really talked about the fact that he was, quote, Hispanic. I'm writing about that right now. But a year, to Trayvon, then we see Mike Brown and what happened in Ferguson. And Ferguson was the test of like all of these millennials who then became very disappointed, pissed off at Obama. That was the people that went down to Ferguson. Now we can have that whole conversation in Ferguson because them young people have been used and abused and mistreated by who? As Glenn Ford said, the Black Misleadership class.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we can open it up to some of the other folks,
Yeah.
To share with that.
Kalanji,
And,
can I ask a question?
yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have 2 questions, very quick. First of all, our comrade Rosa mentioned Kimberly Crenshaw and intersectionality. What really strikes me is that, I think it was during the second show when we were talking about the fact that many of our Pan-African revolutionary leaders have been invisibilized. Okay, many people don't know about them, basically. We talk about Winnie Mandela, who is famous because she was married to Nelson Mandela, but that was her main achievement, I would say. But this is for another discussion. We also mentioned Dulce September, who was murdered in Paris in 1985. We talk about Ruth First, 1982. Those are women who actually sacrificed their lives to make our people free. Okay, but unfortunately, most of those revolutionary African I would even say black. Okay, most of them were black. Rufus was actually white, but I would say, yeah, most of them were black. They did not get the attention or the publicity that Kimberly Crenshaw as an author has got. Okay, she didn't get the same. They didn't get the same type of funding. They don't get the same type of coverage that Kimberly Crenshaw has got. And actually, I think she even posted a message supporting Kamala Harris. So my first question to Rosa, I hope it's clear enough, is that don't you think that there is a contradiction between the fact of trying to promote the work of people like Kimberly Crenshaw, and at the same time not dedicating the same type of energy or even money to make visible the legacy of our other revolutionary African women, leaders?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So Kimberly Crenshaw, she did the work critical race theory. Critical race theory. That was what her article was about when it was dormant for a long time because they didn't even teach Kimberly Crenshaw. And to this day, most colleges and undergrads don't have access to, quote, a critical race theory analysis. No, I agree with you in this way. Ferguson again, because Ferguson right now it's been 10 years. As a historian, as I pursue my PhD, I decided to focus on contemporary history, not writing about things that happened in the 70s or 80s, even though I talk about them, So we got a 10-year, and then the killing of, wow, that is my menopause.
What year are you talking about?
Wait, oh my God.
George Floyd.
Oh yeah, George Floyd. Sorry.
So good. We with you.
Yes, sorry about that. And you have very visible leaders that are living really good $1 million lives because they did pimp Ferguson and they did dive into all that money that came down during the protests with George Floyd, and then double down, on the DEI and all these things, which none of these things resonate in our communities, especially our communities that are working class and poor. So all that, what you're saying, I 100% agree with you. And I think that's the biggest thing that has happened. And then seeing what happened with Black Lives Matter and movement for Black lives and all these things, folks made choices about being on magazine covers and getting free clothes and going to award show. Now I'm gonna say that it might be a contradiction with me, because I went to the Golden Globes when Tarana Burke invited a bunch of us and paired us up with actresses. And I know Susan Sarandon, and she's been an incredible, she's not even an ally, I call her more of an accomplice because she's been on the right side of all those things, right? But I get it. Like the next day, people are like, Rosa, I can't believe you went. I said, well, you know what? I raised $80,000 for Puerto Rico, walking a red carpet, going to a couple parties. And you know what? I said to somebody, I said, I don't care. I have fun for 24 hours. Can I get some fun and then go back to work? So people were always coming at me with certain things. But what you're saying is the movement thought that philanthropy was going to save them as opposed to community organizing. And everybody, for the most part, that is a visible leader has completely dropped the ball, and they do not care because there's not ever accountability. So 100% agree with your analysis on that.
Anybody else?
I had a second question very quickly, because you mentioned the fact that, people in the US would never elect a woman as president. It really struck me because, I'm not very familiar with the US society. I don't know, I'm based in Europe, basically, that's where I grew up. It really struck me because, and Fernando will be probably able to confirm that, because most of the leaders of the fascist parties here in Europe are women.
Right.
And some of them have been elected. The prime minister of the third economic power in Europe is a woman. Okay, the prime minister of Italy. And you look at France, Spain, Sweden, Norway. Most of the far right wing and even some neo-Nazi parties who are either in power or have a chance of getting in power, they are now led by women. So would you assume that, I don't know if you'll be able to answer that question, but would you assume that the European societies are less patriarchal than the U.S. society, and that's why women will never get elected, whereas far right-wing women in Europe, for example, get elected.
Well, what I believe I see in Latin America, the continent of Africa, and Europe, I know in Europe they're more neo-Nazi, Marie Le Pen, what she's trying to do in France, and that. But I believe the whole world is patriarchal. I think, like, we talk about anti-blackness amongst the Latino community, and a lot of the work in the last 3 years really reads like this: all Latinos are anti-black, and I'll be like, what Latinos? That's not even a race. There's no land called Latino. It's no. I'm a black, racially Puerto Rican, ethnically woman who believes as an independista that I want freedom from the chains of colonialism on Puerto Rico right now. So I believe, yes, I totally believe that it's like you have to undo it. So when I talk to some people and they're like, man, when I was growing up, I did this. I didn't know that was anti-black. Or like my abuela would say, Rosie, don't go out in the sun. Ita negrita, you know, and what would she know being born in 1898 in Puerto Rico and then having 16 children? Like she was like, that's just like my dad will say to my daughter, negrita, ven, comati, ven aquí. Then they do a whole session about people who say they're negrita. And it's like, it's almost like we have to root out anti-blacknism in my larger community. I believe in that. But I'm more about like the whole world's anti-black. What are we going to do about it? And what are we going to do with the people that are looking like us, the genders that are about us, the ones that put in all these systems into play, while the white men are like in the back room, like, you know, like let them go fuck themselves up.
Right. Well, in this case,
and I'm oh, okay. Go ahead, Kalonji. I'm sorry.
no. I was just gonna say some smart shit. In this right case, in this case, judging from the picture above your head, Rosa, the white man is on top of her. But anyway, I'm
Oh
just saying,
God! Well, let me say this to all of my real black girls, all of my black women, all of my African diasporic women. If you are watching this YouTube, know that this power that we possess is real. Because if we see that they're using her femininity and her gender as a thing to distract us, then we have to acknowledge that there's some power in that, right? There's something to be said about women being in leadership. But I want to encourage my sisters to not be fooled by just being in sisterhood with somebody that really ain't about that life, okay? And that's my warning. That's my warning. Don't just be down because she is a woman. Be critical of who she is